Today, Martin Brundle shows up on television almost every Formula One weekend. The grid walk, the commentary, the famous face that millions recognize the moment he appears on screen. But that is not why he was once talked about. There was a time when Martin Brundle was considered one of the most frightening young racing talents in Europe. There was a time when he stood shoulder to shoulder with Ayrton Senna, not in memory, on the track, in the same car, in the same season. And there was a time when he sat in the same garage as Michael Schumacher, not as a commentator watching from the outside, as a teammate fighting for the same victory. Every time he got close to history, history chose someone else. And the most remarkable thing about Martin Brundle is not what happened to him, it is what it felt like to live with all of it. This is not the story of the commentator millions know. It is the story of the driver who stood next to legends, close enough to touch them, but never allowed to become one. Martin Brundle came from King's Lynn, Norfolk, a small town, a family that ran a local car dealership. No wealth, no famous name, no path laid out for him. He once said, "My eternal and sincere thanks to family, friends, motorsport folk and fans for the help and support since I first grass-tracked a Ford Anglia 53 years ago, 12 years old. A self-built car, a grass track. That is where it all began." By 1983, he had scraped together just enough to race in British Formula 3, thanks to a £5,000 prize from the Grovewood Award and a partnership with Eddie Jordan's tiny team. As Brundle himself put it, mine was run by Eddie Jordan with virtually no money, no backing, no safety net, just a young man from Norfolk who refused to stop. But it was that season that changed everything and destroyed everything. British Formula 3, 1983. Two young drivers dominated the entire season, Ayrton Senna and Martin Brundle. Between them, they won every single round except one. And that one, they both crashed into each other and neither finished. Senna won the first 9 races in a row, 9. Nobody could touch him. And inside Brundle's head, something was breaking. He later admitted there's always a genius driver who comes along to spoil your day. And Senna's reputation preceded him. He won the first 9 races, and that started to do my head in. That is not the language of a technical debrief. That is a man confessing he was being destroyed from the inside. Then came Silverstone. June, Brundle won, and Senna crashed, trying to keep up. When I won at Silverstone in June, and he crashed trying to keep up with me, I realized I could beat him in the same car on the same day. Senna started to crack. More crashes followed. Brundle took the championship lead heading into the final round by a single point. But at Thruxton, Senna had a fresh engine from Italy. Brundle's was exhausted. Senna dominated. The title slipped away. The first time history chose someone else. But at that moment, it did not hurt. Not yet. Because both men were heading to Formula One. The future was wide open. Brundle said years later, "I probably have to thank Ayrton for my F1 career." He said that with hindsight, knowing exactly where that future would lead. 2 drivers entered Formula One in 1984. One would become immortal. The other would spend the rest of his life standing next to him. Tyrrell, 1984. A small team running a naturally aspirated engine in the turbo era, outpowered on every straight, outspent by every rival. But Brundle did not care. First race, Brazil, fifth place, then Detroit, second, just behind Nelson Piquet, his first podium in Formula One. And there was a strange detail that even Senna noticed. Brundle's Formula One career was starting better than his. Brundle recalled on the Beyond the Grid podcast, he was annoyed that my career started better than his in Formula One. Senna, annoyed at Brundle, because Brundle was ahead. Martin Brundle did not just survive in Formula One. He was beginning to rise. The future should have been brilliant. Then Formula One went to Dallas. Dallas, 1984. A temporary street circuit built on parking lots. Brutal heat, crumbling asphalt, concrete walls on both sides. Brundle called it a joke of a track. Qualifying session. A puncture. The Tyrrell 012 swerved without warning and slammed into the concrete wall at the chicane. The impact ripped the front off the car. Both ankles broken, both feet broken. American doctors wanted to amputate one of his legs. Professor Sid Watkins, Formula One's chief medical officer, had to intervene to save it. Brundle spent a full month in a clinic in London. His wife Liz had to help him with everything. He went up and down the stairs, sitting on the floor, pulling himself by the strength of his arms. But the most painful detail was not in the hospital. Even after recovery, the damage was permanent. Martin Brundle could never brake with his left foot again. In Formula One, where tenths of a second decide everything, that was a life sentence. A sentence he carried with him every single time he sat in a car for the next 12 years. And while he lay in that hospital bed, the news arrived. Tyrrell had been disqualified from the entire 1984 World Championship. Every result erased. The podium in Detroit, gone. Fifth place in Brazil, gone. His body had not yet healed. And history had already been erased. The second time, history chose someone else. Except this time, it did not choose anyone, it simply took. Martin Brundle came back to the track. But the man who climbed into the car was no longer the man from before Dallas, and he knew it. While Brundle was learning to walk again, Senna was learning to fly, Lotus, McLaren, 3 world championships, immortality. Brundle came back to Formula One, but with broken machinery and broken feet. Zach Speed, Brabham, Tyrrell again. He kept racing, he kept fighting, but the gap between what he could have become and what he was allowed to become grew wider with every season. Then 1992, the last chance, Benetton Ford, the best car he had ever driven. Brundle was no longer a young man. He understood this might be the final time. He later said, "In my 158 Grand Prix starts, I twice had a car that could win the race. One was Canada 1992, and the other was Spa later that same year, when Michael Schumacher finally won. But I should have. 3 words, an entire life, Spa 1992. Schumacher took his first ever Formula One victory. The beginning of a journey toward becoming the greatest champion in the history of the sport. And the teammate sitting in the same garage, the man who should have won that race, was Martin Brundle. The third time history chose someone else. The pattern was complete. Senna took the first future. Schumacher took the last chance. But here is the truth that makes this story unbearable. Brundle won Le Mans in 1990. won the World Sports Car Championship in 1988, won Daytona in 1988, all with Jaguar. He knew how to win. He had won just never in Formula One. 158 starts, 9 podiums, 0 victories, and as Motorsport magazine wrote, that is something that still sometimes troubles him in his more reflective moments. Not always, just sometimes. In the quiet moments when nobody is watching. 1996, Japan, the final race. I finished 5th in my final F1 race as I finished 5th in my first F1 race. He thought he would continue with Jordan in 1997. Then came the Birmingham Racing Car Show. Someone told him it might be better if he was not there anymore. Eddie Jordan had just announced Ralf Schumacher and Giancarlo Fisichella as his new drivers. That's how I found out I was no longer a Formula One driver. No farewell, no final lap of honour, no goodbye. When I see drivers getting farewell tours and all that sort of thing, I'm slightly envious. Then ITV called. Murray Walker needed a partner. I never wanted to be a broadcaster. I was so angry because I wanted to be on the grid in 1997 driving for Jordan. And I ended up working with Murray Walker. He walked into the commentary box with anger, not passion. And the strangest thing happened. He became one of the greatest Formula One broadcasters in history. The grid walk, 4 BAFTAs, an OBE, a whole new generation of fans who knew the name Martin Brundle but had no idea he ever raced. My entire motorsport career seems to be a fact-finding mission for my broadcasting career. He said that with a smile. But there were nights in those quiet, reflective moments when never having won a single Formula One race still came back to him. The man who was good enough to make history became the man who told it to the world. What really happened to Martin Brundle was not the crash, not the broken feet, not 158 races without a victory. What really happened is that every time he got close to history, history chose someone else. In 1983, it chose Senna. In 1984, it took his body. In 1992, it chose Schumacher. In 1996, it took the seat he never got to say goodbye to. And he stayed not on the track, but beside it, telling the stories of the men that history chose. Ayrton Senna became a legend. Michael Schumacher became a legend. Martin Brundle became the man who told their stories. And maybe that is why millions still know his name.